Alright, what is going on, traders? It's Market Monkey Trades here. Today is June 2nd. I'm going to go over my $300 supply and demand trade I took today. And before I get into the video, I just want to shout out Market Monkey LLC on Instagram. There I post my live supply and demand trade setups, recaps, and overall thought process. Twitter, same thing, super insightful. I post these setups live for you guys before the move happens, so definitely want to give me a follow there. All right, now let's get into today's video. So this week for SPY, which is what I trade, /ES is the E mini series, the futures that tracks the S&P 500. I trade the S&P 500, and the past couple weeks have been pretty interesting. We've seen this huge sell-off in this channel accumulate over the past 2 months, and then we saw a big breakout recently. So let me get these charts lined up. So we had this breakout with this trend line that worked really well last Thursday, and we've been making new demand levels, higher highs, and demand has been working out very well for this week. So knowing that, and knowing I wanted to trade the direction of the market, which brings me to my first point, then I knew that this trend breakout, which I'm going to go over in a minute, was going to be very powerful. When the bulls are stepping in, normally these little retail trading patterns work very well if you can align it with supply and demand and other indicators confirming or validating that your trade is going to work in your favor. So let's go over a few key things so this trade makes sense. Demand zones that can't hold key supply levels generally will turn into supply zones that have good put opportunities, and on the inverse of that, supply zones that can't hold key levels generally will turn into demand zones and have good call opportunities. So what do I mean by that? Now, if you can see, I'm going to go back to the 30-minute chart. Right here, we have a really nice supply area. And let me actually extend this a little bit. Let's say right here. So we have a nice little supply zone right here. And if you can see, once we form it, we come up, we test it again, and we test this trend line, which I really like. Supply and trend line working out well. So very good short opportunity here. We come down, we test this demand level, and then we start to rip up again. So when we rip through a supply or demand level, we then take out this level. That's what most people will tell you. However, these levels are very key opportunities to actually do the opposite of what most would do at a supply zone or what most would do at demand zone. Now, normally at supply zone, you go short, at demand, you go long. Well, when supply zones don't have any more leftover orders, I like to actually fade the market and take it the other way. So that's what demand, fade the market to the south side if we can't hold demand, or take calls and go long to the north side if we can't hold supply. So when I really like these plays because it shows such bullish or bearish action. So if at supply we come up, we get a lot of volume, a lot of selling pressure every time we come into supply, but then we actually rip through it to the upside. That is a very bullish indicator that the bulls are stepping in and just bursting through all the sell orders there. So that's really nice little scalp opportunities that I like to catch. So today I caught not only this supply turn demand level, but also the breakout of this macro trend here that formed over the past 4 days, knowing that this breakout from the channel earlier last week worked really well. I knew that this one would probably have the same reaction, and that's exactly what happened. So in the morning, I wanted to see a bounce off demand. So we get it yesterday, nice bounce. This morning at 10 o'clock, I think, yep, 10, we have a bounce off demand, and I'm looking for longs if we can break this trend line. We break the trend line, we break right out of supply. That's when I go long, just to make sure that my risk is mitigated. I set my stop loss at the bottom of supply, and I take profits while we are in the supply zone. Took profits right at 41.45. So I love supply and demand for the fact that you know where price will most likely end up, and it's great to take profits. Supply and demand give you really good entries and exits, and I love that. We also have this supply zone right here that we ripped through today. I'm going to delete this as well, but keep in mind, these levels will likely want to be tested again as an area of interest. So I would not be surprised if price wants to come back and test this. So most people will keep the zone but change it a different color, let's say white, so they know that that zone is not as powerful. It's not going to hold most likely, but price will like to test that level. So we could put a line here and say it's likely price will come back down here. But for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to. Alright, so if we look at our chart here on SPY, really the next resistance level, the next supply zone we have is all the way up here at 42.60. So the game plan is really we need to break 4,200, and that is a very good long opportunity to hit supply. And I like to always tell the traders in my community, when in doubt, zoom out. I mean, looking at the daily is extremely powerful, and it just kind of gives an overall clarity to the market, and gives you very good market context of what has been going on in terms of price action the past week. We have this huge large candle from this continuation breakout of this channel here that formed very nice demand that we tapped into on the first and on the second. Looking at the daily, you can tell this is very powerful demand area, which gave me a little bit more validation to take this trade long at the break of this trend line. And always look for other indicators. Supply and demand zones are just levels of interest, and all the price action between supply and demand zones is just noise. So two extremely important things. I'm gonna go back to my charts and show you guys what I was looking at when I took this trade. So what I was looking at was Microsoft and Apple, because that is the S&P 500's biggest holdings. The S&P 500 moves mostly off of Microsoft and Apple's reactions and price action, and also as well as NASDAQ and the Qs. So I don't trade the S&P 500 blindly. I trade off of what actually moves that market. So I'm looking at Microsoft, and I really want to see a break of 200 and the 9 to give me bullish confirmation, and then chase this supply zone area at 272.5. So when we were at the 9 at Microsoft, we were about to break this triangle on ES. So a break of the 9 on Microsoft give me bullish confirmation, and also the break of VWAP on Apple as well also gave me that bullish confirmation to take this market long. So always be looking at the Qs, Microsoft, Apple, whatever the S&P 500 tracks, because that's what's going to be moving the market. So supply and demand and these little macro trend breakouts are extremely powerful when you can actually line up other indicators like Apple and Microsoft breaking key levels and chasing supply to give you the proper validation or confirmation to take the market in whatever direction you desire. So I think this is very important. And if you can see here, NASDAQ and Qs at this key level here. So this break is going to give me good confidence that the market is going to want to go up and chase the supply. So just another example of why you have to look at other things in order for SPY to make sense. Lastly, the price action in between supply and demand zones is just noise. So I trade where the bank's smart money trades, and I like to say don't diddle in the middle. Everywhere in between those supply and demand zones is just noise. So if you can see from today's trade, the supply zone, let's say, it was right there, kind of sloppy way. I'm just drawing it quick for this video, but let's say we have this supply zone. When I took this market long right here, I wasn't nervous that price was gonna come back down. I knew this supply zone was gonna get tested, and because we had such a bullish reaction off demand. So don't deal in the middle. There would be no reason for me to get in here, get in here, get in over here. This break of this macro trend, normally I only get in at zones, but this was a big level, so I took it long here. And once we came up here and flushed back down, right back to my entry point, I wasn't nervous. Why? Don't diddle in the middle. You know price is gonna want to test that supply zone. So that's why supply and demand zones are very helpful, um, especially with your emotional state, because it lets you know price is probably gonna uh, enter these zones. So why get nervous when price fluctuates and goes up and down? Because that's what's supposed to happen. The market moves in waves, right? So if you get in here, price goes up, comes way back down. There's no reason to sell. There's no reason to get nervous, because I know price is probably going to want to test the supply zone. Don't diddle in the middle. All the price action in between zones is just noise. So overall, really successful day today. Kind of a picture perfect trade. This breakout, taking profit at supply and locking in $300 of profit. Overall, really good trade. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow for a new supply and demand video.